Okay, from the top.
I can't do that. I can't. Fucking think about it that
All the
way.
loopholes with time travel.
You should have pressed play a long time ago. I can't
Come on,
go
come on.
over it again.
Running into yourself.
Well, yeah, like I said, you can't exist in the same place twice. So if I'm moving forward through time, that means if I go backwards in time, I would have to be in that same space that I'm in right now. So all the molecules that I am right now would crash into the ones I was yesterday or just before this. And like I said, if I'm breathing the air I'm breathing right now, and I go back to this time, where's that? Does that come back in time with me? Can I rebreathe that air? Or has it still been used? It's like way too many fucking problems with time travel.
And the rock. If you're going to take a rock and take the rock back in time,
then it'd crash into everything that's moving forward right now, because the Earth is moving at a rate around the sun, and the sun is moving at a speed around the universe.
So you literally have to draw all of that back just to take a rock back in time.
Yeah, otherwise it's just going to crash into everything at the speed that everything's moving at. Or is that rock somehow moving at the right speed exactly? And then what if it came back into existence on top of something that already exists? Let's say I took that rock back in time to the point before I picked it up. So now what? Is there two rocks? And what happens to the first rock?
Do they cancel each other out?
Do those molecules now exist over top of each other? What happens when that happens?
It could be a violent explosion.
It could be a violent explosion, or just not feasible. There's probably rules in existence to stop that from happening.
Right.
Maybe create a black hole. I don't know.
And like you say, if you go back in time to before you made a time machine,
then how did you make a time machine to go back in time? Yeah. So if I build a time machine today, use it tomorrow, and go back to yesterday, then I don't have a time machine because I went back before I made the time machine.
You'd just be ignorant of it all.
But so I'd have to remove myself from existence to go back in time, and if I don't exist, how do I affect anything?
Right, and even if you were in a different dimensional space, you can interact with the world, because even looking at something is interacting with it, because we know that looking at something changes
it,
the photons.
Yeah, your eyes absorb light to see a thing, so you couldn't very well use the photons from yesterday to look at things today. Or from the future. So if I was in the future, those are new photons that I'm using to look around, right? If I go back in time, those photons haven't got here yet. They're still coming. So I'm using what photons? Am I using up light that bounced off the Earth? Because we're looking at stuff right now from it ricocheting off of things. So will I make it just cast a shadow? Like, how would that work? And all of these things have energy potentials. So even if I bounced back in time and just suddenly existed, all of the things that existed in that point are now what? Inside my body? What happens when a photon just is suddenly inside of a piece of matter? And what about all the rest of the things that exist in that same space? Are they like neutrinos and they just don't interact? Some neutrinos do.
Yeah. So you just think time travel is absolutely impossible?
Time travel is in one direction. You can only go forward. There's no backwards. And if you do go backwards, a whole bunch of shit bad will happen. Like crashing into your own self. So like, let's say I could just suddenly, even without a machine, just go back in time. Well, I'm standing here right now moving through space. So what would happen to the other me? Would I just, all of my molecules crash into those? It's like the river thing. You can't step into the same river twice, and you're not that same person, and that's not that same river. It's the same problem. So like, right now, the me that exists that's saying these things is right now. If I try to go back to the me that was there before, is that all new particles, or that, do I suddenly exist twice? Like, there's all kinds of issues with that.
Yeah.
Can I stand next to myself in that reality? Because those things would overlap. What I am right now would overlap with what I'm going to be.
Right.
like the me that started this conversation? What happens to him?
That's a big problem at the plane with the sound barrier.
Yeah, the plane with the sound barrier is a real problem. The first time we ever broke the speed of sound, we almost broke the machine that we did it with. The front end of the plane broke the sound barrier before the ass end of the plane and damn near shook itself apart.
So I can imagine going the speed of light, and the front half of your body gets there first.
Unless it's instantaneous, which is
Yeah.
impossible. That's what you call teleporting.
Yeah. Okay.
Because, like, at some point, it's going to get through that speed barrier before the second, the back end of you does. Let's say I'm riding an airplane. The front end of my airplane is going to break that barrier before the ass end of my airplane. So what happens to the in-between?
So what if you could teleport and displace particles so that when you came into existence, you just...
Everything around you would still have momentum, like it does. So you would have to have perfect momentum to keep up with the thing, or otherwise the Earth would hit you at its speed. You would be like...
Oh, shit.
Like, I'm standing here right now, it looks like I'm not moving, but I am.
I got it.
So
Okay,
you'd have
well...
that'd be one hell of a number crunch, because you'd have to measure the speed of the planet, you'd have to measure the speed of the sun, you'd have to measure the speed of the galaxy, you'd have to measure the speed of every dust particle around you.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow you can't interact with any of it before you show up, because if you do, you might end up with dust in your fucking brain. Or overlapping particles, which, I mean, that's the biggest problem. You can't exist in two places at once, and to go back in time, you have to.
Right. Just merge with your former self and you're some kind of weird chimera.
Well, it was probably just like when two particles bounce into existence at the same time, they cancel each other out. But it still doesn't answer the thing. If you're going to go back in time, you're going to go back before the time you created your time machine. So to contradict that, or to prevent that from happening, you have to remove yourself from existence. And if you don't exist, how can you influence anything?
Right.
None of it makes any sense.
So it's like the most we could do is go forward in time, get faster. Say we find like an alien civilization on another planet, and then we'd have to boot it back here. And by then everything will have changed. Yeah. And that's the best that we can...
I think it's like to like the 7th degree or something like that. It's the fastest we can go. So like if I was moving close to the speed of light, I think it's like 7 to 1 or something like this. I can't remember exactly.
But there's like a limit that particles can go.
Yeah, there is. You need infinite energy to move forward faster than that.
Okay, so what if you did have infinite energy? Let's say that 0 point energy is the hypothetical infinite energy.
That still doesn't make infinite energy.
Why?
Because nothing can exist from nothing. You can't just birth new energy into the universe. It doesn't work that way. Even 0 point energy is burning some kind of fuel. So it's not infinite. So what is explain what 0 point energy is then. Even if you're breaking down a molecule, that's not infinite.
Right. No, I've heard it being linked to certain molecules. So
yeah,
I believe you.
If you have to use a source to create energy, it's not infinite.
Right. Mm.
And let's say I could go 98% of the speed of light. Then everything that I encounter on the way is going to hit me at 98% of the speed of light. Now, how do I prevent that from annihilating me? Every speck of dirt that I come across is now an atomic bomb.
You have to change state so that you don't react with matter.
And again, you remove yourself from existence, then how do you affect existence if you don't exist?
Yeah, no kidding. Even if you turned yourself into neutrinos or something,
you'd
still react with some of it.
Yeah, they still
come
have
out
some
with
mass.
holes.
Yeah, they still have some mass, otherwise they wouldn't exist.
So you have so basically it's not existing.
You have to not exist to time travel, and if you don't exist, you can't affect shit. And you can go forward in time, but that's just getting fast. That's different. You can outrun time, basically, to a point. You can't go backwards in time.
So you
and that's just causality. That's a different.
You don't think we'll figure out how to go into subspace?
There's no reason to believe subspace is a thing, other than Star Trek.
Well, I know, but like you said, it's interchangeable with the word dimension, so
Yeah.
we might be able to figure it out.
If it's a part of reality, then maybe that
Mm-hmm.
subspace is space but smaller, so you can travel a shorter distance and come out farther away.
Right.
Yeah. But there's, like I said, there's no reason to believe that's a thing.
Oh, I want it to be a thing because that's the only way that you could get.
It'd be like going into a lesser dimension. So if I'm 3 or 4 dimensions right now, right? So I'm physically 3 dimensions plus time and distance is the 4th dimension. So if I could go to be 2-dimensional, now I'm what? A drawing? What? How does that work? So now I'm in less dimensions, so I can travel farther at the same distance, but come out farther away. Now I got to go back to being 3-dimensional. How do you end up doing that? How do I make myself in less dimensions? How do I go down a level?
I'm not sure. I'm sure it has something to do with information.
Yeah, there's a lot of hand waves you have to make any of this happen.
Yeah.
That, I mean, and again, how do you affect anything outside of your dimension? How do you go back up a dimension or down a dimension? And it really depends on how you define dimension. Like,
Yeah.
are we talking about physical dimensions or different, like subspace? Is that a dimension?
Yeah, because
I've heard another form of reality.
I've heard analogies used that changes the definition of dimension. Like when Mark Levin talks about a caterpillar being a 2-dimensional creature versus a butterfly being 3.
Yeah.
So you could make an analogy that there's a 5th dimension and that this is the ability to time travel, and that you're actually removing yourself from reality. Or you're breaking the code, basically.
That's semantics. A caterpillar is 4-dimensional, so is a butterfly.
Right. Yeah, technically.
Technically. So if you're going to do any of this, you're going to have to do it technically.
Mm-hmm.
Semantics won't get you back in time. It's like if you froze me, like cryo-freeze me and woke me up in the future, did I time travel?
No.
Well, why not? It's the same as going super fast. I didn't exist, my particles didn't break down. I guess there would be some decay of my particles. But let's say you woke me up in time that the radiation didn't destroy all my molecules inside my body. And that was okay. Why is that not traveling into the future? How's it any different?
You made it into the future because a lot happened while you were sleeping.
Traveling at close to light speed makes you into the future. Get you there before your molecules break down. Potentially. I mean, you would have to make some kind of magic shield that stop you from bumping into all the radiation you're going to fly through on the way. But let's say I had that magic shield that protected me from the nuclear bombs that are dust and all the radiation that I'm going to gather because now I'm flying through space that's right full of radiation. So that it's kind of the same problem. If you froze me, my molecules are still going to break down and decay, and radiation is still going to bombard me. But let's say you could get me outside of that, and then you woke me up. Very similar to the same problem as traveling into the future. And in all intents and purposes, as far as my consciousness is concerned, I am now in the future.
Semantically.
Yeah. Physically, my body would still be alive when it should have been dead.
Mm-hmm. This is why, like, you know, supercomputers, they're experiencing time different, or maybe not, but they're going much faster.
They're experiencing it different if they can compute faster than we can think, which is, I don't know if they've broken that barrier yet.
So why isn't time dilation a form of time travel?
It is.
It is.
Good point.
Okay.
Time dilation is a form of time travel. If you're moving fast enough, your molecules and shit will break down slower.
So what if you're pure energy? What if you are a being that's just faster? And then you come back to the level of human comprehension, and you're like, hey, I've seen the future.
Well, you wouldn't be able to come back in time still.
Why not? No, what I'm saying is not back in time, to our present time.
You can go into the future, I guess.
Yeah, if it can move faster, and then slow down again, come back to our level.
How fast is this energy moving at?
I'm not sure.
That's the...
Computers are just so much faster than our thinking now.
Yeah, but that's to a point. But the way computers outthink us is there's a whole bunch of them working on the same problem. That's like having hundreds of people working on the same problem.
That's exactly the way the brain works, though, is you have these columns that are all doing stuff at the same time. And if you were to multiply that, which is why if you link brains together, you have that amplified effect.
Yeah.
It's just like a computer is like
It's
thousands of brains linked up together.
How much effort do you want to put in? I'm not so convinced that computers do outthink us. If you had just as many people working on it as you did machines, I don't think that they would be that much more powerful than us, if at all, because they lack things like creativity.
No, they have simulated creativity now.
Yeah, but that came from us.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Is yeah, it's exactly like using brains. Is what's the quality of the brains that you're hooking up to get together? How good are their simulation technology?
Yeah, but
abilities?
your brain is not a copy of my brain. It's capable of thinking about shit that I don't think about. A computer is a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. It's not going to come to a new conclusion. It's going to come to the same conclusion a million times.
Not if you program it to have variation.
You need, multiple different machines thinking in different ways.
That's why now they have sliding scales where you can up the temperature of creativity and lower it.
Really good fake. That's what I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a better and faster fake is still you're still not seeing where I'm going with this. It's able to see the future. It's able to see a different.
It's not seeing the future.
Okay. Well. So you don't think that it could handle information faster and therefore it's kind of seeing the future?
No, because there's always an outside variable that could just throw everything off. It
right.
could make all these predictions and then a super volcano goes off that it never foreseen. Or somebody pushed a button across the world and blew some shit up.
Right.
You don't know what's going to come next. We can't know.
Right.
Can't even see the past perfectly. The way I interpret it compared to the way you interpret it is going to be different.
Oh, for sure.
The brain is still the best supercomputer. Because you got crazy ass people out there thinking about super volcanoes. So at least it comes into question. The computer is only going to give you what you put in. That's all it can ever do, is give you what you put into it.
Well, that's right. But if humans collectively put into it, we're going to get a computer that can fathom super volcanoes.
Sure. If we tell it to think about it, it will.
Yes.
But we don't have to tell people. They'll just come up with things on their own.
No, they won't. If you don't know about how volcanoes work,
and how did we invent computers to start with? Somebody had to dream that up out of nowhere.
I don't think it came out of nowhere. I think it came from them slowly building more and more complex calculators and shit.
Well, we had to invent that.
Yeah, sure.
We came
That's
from
why it took
a
so
place
long, though.
where there was barely anything, and we turned it into this. I'm not so sure if you... How long, if you left a computer running, how long until it figured out how to build itself or come up with something else? Just leave it running. Is it going to invent anything or change anything or do anything on its own?
No.
Yeah. Maybe it would. I don't know. I don't build these things, but I mean, I'd be seriously surprised if it did anything outside of what we told it.
Well, that would be something, because I don't know how information moving through minerals could evolve.
Well,
it might.
That's what we are.
Well, yes.
But I don't know what it takes to make a person. I don't know how consciousness came to be, and I don't know if a machine could ever be conscious. It can fake it really well.
Well, before conscious computers, what we're going to have is just the augmentation of ourselves with those computers.
Yeah, I think we'll most likely trick ourselves into believing it's real long before it's real.
Oh, probably. I watched a video today where this girl is talking about how AI is nudging her into the future with stuff, because she kept saying she's like in front of her phone with, the microphones. I was listening, and she's like, I'm thinking of a white BMW. I'm thinking of a white BMW. And don't you know, her ads start showing her this white BMW, and it's like, no duh.
Yeah, that's not...
But people will get tricked because people don't understand how it works.
It's high-level marketing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why we will believe it. Yeah, absolutely.
You can even forcibly turn it off if you want to. So I wouldn't. But I like the suggestions.
Yeah, now that I...
People buy apps all the time so that their machine doesn't listen to them, which I don't really understand. What do you have to hide?
Right. Okay, so your point, your stance is time travel is not real.
Going back in time is not real. Time
Okay.
travel is definitely real. Otherwise, everything would be stagnant. Nothing would ever happen.
And there's some place where
Another
particles
reason.
come from where light particles light particles can skip in and out of.
I don't understand the distance thing. When you travel at the speed of light, apparently not only does time slow down, but distance gets shorter. I just know that to be what they consider a fact. Now, how that works, I don't understand. It's outside of my comprehension. But if light is going around a ring, apparently that ring compared to the light is getting smaller, and the time that it takes to travel around it is less. But I don't comprehend that.
Yeah.
You can look it up and find the definition and read it.
It really seems to me like the photon going the speed of light that makes the track get smaller is teleporting. That's really what it looks like.
Looks like it, or maybe
Or sounds
it's a
like, I
problem
should
with
say.
measurement.
It could
Maybe
be.
our tools of measuring isn't good enough to figure it out completely.
Yeah, that could be.
But as far as light goes, it's moving at such a rate it basically doesn't exist until it bounces. That doesn't really sit well with me either, because then when we look out into space, we're seeing things that are in distant past because it took light so long to get here. But how could that be if it's moving so fast that it basically doesn't exist until it touches something? So how does time affect light? Can a photon get old? The primary answer is no. But then that doesn't make a whole bunch of sense. So it bounced off something, gained a color that we perceive so we can see an image. Some of them are moving faster than others because of different wavelengths there are.
Yeah.
Just doesn't add up to me. It's because I don't understand it doesn't make it not real.
I like that theory that redshift is just particles evolving, getting heavier.
Mass over time,
Yeah.
yeah. Makes sense to a point. Some of it does, some of it doesn't. Still, the microwave background doesn't make a whole bunch of sense in that situation. It's all redshifted to a point, and it looks like it's all the same distance away. So that didn't change states at all? Microwaves don't change state, I guess. What happens when they interact with other things? And why is there big holes in the microwave background? That's another one that they don't really understand. It should be even all around. It's not. Mostly even, but mostly is not. Almost is not. So.
Yeah. Well, and then the theory for the expansion of the universe falls apart because the universes that are far away are just as distributed as the ones closer.
Apparently. And the rates are not the same on all of them either, which is also a problem. And what's past the microwave background? What happened before the singularity? There's all kinds of questions that can't be answered.
Right.
I don't think it's fair to call it a singularity. I think it probably happened more than a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, most likely.
That could be what happens when time tries to go backwards.
Yeah. Well, because how do you separate a thing that's infinitely dense and infinitely small? Suddenly it became everything? That doesn't sit well with me. How do you break something that's infinitely dense? What could possibly have enough energy to break something that's infinitely dense? Maybe time traveling backwards is the only way? And then suddenly it exploded and apparently at the beginning some of those particles were traveling faster than the speed of light, if you believe it or not.
Or you need the power of a singularity to do it.
Yep. But that would be like a black hole exploding. Actually way worse, because all the matter and all the black holes, all of it, was all in one spot at one time. Apparently, if you believe in the Big Bang. all of it was in one spot. So it's not only a black hole exploding; it's all
But
black holes in one spot.
But it was all in one spot and non-reacting.
Apparently. And the what was around it is also unexplainable. So it existed outside of time and space, but suddenly it didn't. All space and time came from that spot. And it comes back to, how do you influence a thing that exists outside of time and doesn't exist in space? How do you influence something that basically doesn't exist? How do you change it? You basically need religion to even start talking about the Big Bang. Another reason why I have a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
Even people go like, "Oh, it was a white hole." In comparison to the singularity that apparently that was the Big Bang, a white hole is a speck of dirt, like a grain of sand. It would be so small and insignificant in comparison to a white hole that it wouldn't have any influence on it. We're talking about all the mass of everything all in one spot. It would take more than just the inside-out black hole to make that explode. Or a wormhole, I guess some people like to call it. Is the beginning of all existence.
Yeah. Doesn't sit well with me either.
Yeah. I think that the universe is infinite and always has been. And sometimes realities bump into each other and create new realities, like foam on the ocean, more than everything was all in one spot. It's not that everything was all in one spot.
So okay. So your dilemma with the time travel is you're exiting reality and coming back, and then you're affecting reality, and that would have to take very precise calculations. Hey, but if the universe is infinite and you had infinite time to figure that out, you might. And you might figure out how to come to someone else's reality and just show up.
I have no problem with you going to another reality. Going back in time in this one is a different scenario completely.
Okay.
Going to someone else's reality, you could somehow dodge all the particles and shit when you pop back into existence. But I already exist, so if you go back in time, you're overlapping me the entire time.
Right.
So when you come back into existence, even if you do pull yourself out of existence, you're overlapping yourself. Unless somehow you can move out of the space you're in. So am I not retracing every step I took, or am I on a different path somehow?
So what if you made a clone of yourself and then sent them back? It'd be a different person.
It'd still be the same problem. The clone exists right now in this space, right?
Yeah.
So if he goes back in time, he's still going to overlap the space he exists in right now.
No.
So you'd
send him back to before he existed. You'd send him back and he'd be...
So if then the machine would overlap the space it exists in.
Yeah. You'd be displacing...
That would still be a problem. There would be two time machines, one exactly on top of the other. It's simple. Two things can't occupy the same space at once. They just can't.
Okay, but you made a clone and sent it back to today.
So does the machine not move too? So the machine stays stationary.
No, but if it showed up here, there's no time machine here in our house.
Then it would go back to past the time that the time machine was created and stop.
Yeah.
Then how you go back past that?
Okay, but you figured out how to keep it from dissolving. It pops into reality. It never went backwards in time. It
just suddenly exists.
Yeah.
Then it has all the same problems as of momentum. It had to be moving exactly the right speed. It has all the different dimensions of time and speed that we exist in right now. We're moving sideways and up and through space and all of that. So it had to match all of that exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And not crash into any of the particles that are here already. Still an awful lot to think about. How you would get it here. So if he doesn't just get smashed against the planet because it's moving tens of thousands of miles per hour, and somehow he can exist without getting like all the dirt and shit that's floating around in the air inside of him, then there's still a lot of problems with
Man, Physics is hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez.
And then everything that he uses, let's say he comes back in time and eats a sandwich, then what happens to the sandwich that exists tomorrow? So I make myself a sandwich, Clone Boy comes and eats my sandwich.
Oh, no, you'd...
Then where's my sandwich tomorrow?
You changed the tomorrow forever. It'd be new...
So it'd be multiple realities then.
Yes.
And he didn't time travel, he changed to another
Okay,
reality.
so maybe multiple realities is as close as we're going to get to this. Maybe that is the truth, though. Maybe we are in multiple realities.
Most likely.
Yeah.
Comes back to the Big Bang thing.
Wow. But I really like that, though. I think that infinite universe is way more optimistic and hopeful than not. I don't think it's expanding either. I think that just doesn't make sense to me.
Maybe this one is, and another form of this reality is shrinking, and another one is stationary, another one...
So if particles just started to disappear, instead of like dark matter coming into existence and making things spread apart, what if things are just disappearing and we don't notice?
In another form of existence, perhaps they are. Maybe everything's getting smaller.
It could be that that's happening in such a balance that that's why we don't notice it happening to us and stuff.
It's one of the better explanations for gravity. Gravity is such a weak force, it doesn't make sense. It permeates everything somehow, but barely influences anything. One of the few ways we have to explain that is that there's one mass source of gravity and it permeates all realities. So in the primary in the primary reality, gravity is excessive, the way it's supposed to be. It's extreme. Nothing exists there. It's like the Big Bang before the Big Bang. But after that, it permeates through all realities, which are very many, infinite even, and is lessened from that. It's like, why isn't gravity one of the strong forces? It's such a minor... Like, I can stand on this planet and jump up and down, no problem.
Yeah.
But there are forces that won't let an electron go. So why is this one so much weaker than the rest? And how does it span out so far in compared to other forces? Other forces have limited distance. Gravity doesn't. The black hole in the center of our universe the gravity from it reaches all the way to Andromeda and pulls towards us. And it's pulling itself towards the black hole in our center. But
holy shit.
Other forces don't have near that much influence.
No.
But somehow gravity is wicked weak when compared to like the nuclear force or something.
Wow. Yeah, wow. It'd be cool if we could like put on some goggles and see the gravity around us.
Apparently it works in waves. It's on a plateau.
Yeah.
It's a flat space, not in every direction.
Huh.
So, but I don't know. That's the baseline understanding. That it's a plane, not an ether.
So much to think about.
Yeah, so even in gravity there's an up and down apparently. I don't really know.
Alright. I'm going to keep my mind open to time travel, but it's starting to look pretty impossible.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to think it can't happen, yeah. Well, again, forward in time. There might be two versions of reality. I like this idea. Like, when the Big Bang happened, everything moving forward is what we're experiencing, but there was another version of time that went backwards. That equals it out. So, like, the Big Bang is the center mark, and two versions of time sped both directions. And so in that reality, all left-handed particles are right-handed and vice versa.
Like a mirror universe?
Like a mirror universe. It would explain...
But when they also... So they don't experience time going forward?
Well, they would perceive it that way.
They would
technically
perceive
no.
it that way?
Yeah, you wouldn't know if you were going backwards in time. Like, a consciousness would perceive themselves the way they perceive themselves.
But by all measurements, it would look like it was going forward.
To them, But if we measured it from our side of the universe, it would look like it was going backwards. And if they measured it from their side, it would look like it was going backwards.
The fuck?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
To us, if we could see through that mirror to the other side, we would see all of their existence crunching up into one space.
Well, mirrors are deceptive, so I could kind of.
I don't really get
that.
it, but I mean, maybe that if they were looking through our side, maybe they would see it all getting farther apart. I don't know, perhaps, or maybe they would see the same thing, big crunch. Maybe that's why gravity's so weak. Singularity is the middle point, and then two versions of time spreads out. And now you got to have gravity on both sides, so it gets weak, and it's got to influence all of that shit. I still can't get past it. Infinitely small and infinitely dense doesn't sit well in my mind. All things in existence in a space smaller than a softball. Some people even describe it as a pin dot, like it's infinitely small.
Right. That first dimension, right?
Yeah.
The first dimension into the second, into the third. Yeah.
How many dimensions does string theory need now to explain itself?
You know, I never really
36
got
or
into
something
string
like that?
theory. Really? Huh.
I don't know. It's an immense amount, anyway.
Hmm.
I'm kind of making fun of it, so I honestly don't think it's real either. Mostly because it has so many problems that people just keep coming up with new reasons and solutions, and these solutions are just manufactured by human minds, so they don't really have any basis in reality because you can't test them. And if it's not testable, it may as well not be real.
Isn't it just that everything's vibration?
And energy.
Yeah, and that's true.
To a point, yeah, it is.
To a point.
Yeah.
But their explanation is just getting out of control.
Yes.
Okay.
They can't explain it, so they come up with new explanations that get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Hmm.
It's like telling a story, right? You start off with a basic story, but you keep adding characters, and they had to have a life, and these new characters' lives have gotten so big.
Right. Right.
And when you think about it on the base scale, all things are energy, and it's a vibration that makes them different things. That seems real basic, right? Seems okay. We've explained it. But then when you start expanding that story, she gets a little out of hand.
Kind of like you just did with time travel for me.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to think about, and you keep
Yeah.
asking me questions that I didn't really think through before, so I had to think them through on the spot.
Well,
Like existing in the same place at once, that's going to be a problem. I didn't really think about that until recently. Like if I'm right here right now, and you move back in time, now I'm completely overlapping my own self. That's a problem.
mhm.
All my particles are right on top of the other particles that are me.
Yeah.
And then everything is moving. So that's another problem. Unless I just drop out into space. It's like that, like I said, with the saying.
It would have to be that physics is describing really savage laws and that it's not as bad as you think. That takes me back to the simulation theory. Because in a game, the atmosphere in a game isn't so complex. Things spawn in on top of each other all the time in our game, and
Yeah.
it's not really a problem.
Well, I mean,
Can be, but
unless you were physical matter, then it's a problem.
then it's a problem. So, I mean, yeah. Could be that physical matter is more of an illusion, and it's not actually that.
Well, still, all that energy would be in the same place twice, and that's not going to be a good thing,
I guess we wouldn't know until we tried it.
I suppose. But like I said, like the saying, you can't stand in the same river twice. You know, that same person.
Yeah.
What's going to be that problem?
Well, I get that. I get that you can't just transfer all of the things you've learned in the time before you travel back to, like,
Yeah.
since you try. Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
Unless there is subspace, and even then, you're just going to come back into a different reality because you've changed this version of reality.
Right.
And you're going to have. We didn't even touch on like the grandfather paradox and all that shit. What if I go back in time, find my grandmother, and knock her up?
Yeah, I've heard all that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that multiple realities has to be what is going on.
It's like when they operated on my brain and I didn't remember 3 or 4 days. It's almost like I did get reborn into a new reality. Like it really felt like I was different all around. I didn't even see colors the same.
Yeah. Yeah, near-death experiences are profound.
Pretty sure that was more than a near death.
Yeah. Yeah, we still don't really know what happened there.
No. What happened to the other version of me? If there are multiple realities, there's one version where I'm blind. There's one version where I'm brain dead on one side. There's one version where I didn't get full motor function.
Yeah.
There's one version where I just didn't come out of the operation room. I don't like that one.
Wow, thanks for the talk.
Yeah, you're gonna have to get quicker on your button push so you get it.
That was 41 minutes. Yeah, I'm gonna go do some work now. Nightcrawler lore, go.
You always do this to me. Well, depends on. Okay, so the old Nightcrawler in the comic books, there was a few episodes where they like broke his ability, so it worked slowly. So when he went to teleport, he didn't just instantly show up somewhere else. They showed what was actually happening. And when he teleported, he was in like another version of reality, but it was like a broken Earth reality. It was like ugly and fire and demonish, and he had to like traverse all of that to get back to his own reality. So every time he was teleporting, he was actually going into another version,
Like hell.
and then popping back into ours.
That's so
And he'd
cool.
lose his memory of doing it every time. So when this, I can't remember how it worked, if it was a machine or something that they did to him, but every time he teleported, that's what was going on. He was going into that other reality and then having to come back to our reality.
And he had to deal with all these paradoxes of time travel too, where he couldn't like be holding someone and travel into a place he couldn't see.
Just hand waved that. That worked
Okay.
for him for some reason. Instead of just teleporting, holding someone's hand, and then showing back up with a severed hand in his hand, they would teleport with him. But there's no reason for that. But he was always afraid of teleporting into something. Like he could become a part of a wall or something if he teleported. He never wanted to teleport to a place he couldn't see because he didn't know if he'd show up with something sticking out of his body or misgauge the distance.
So no going inside vaults.
Yeah, going inside of a vault for Nightcrawler is really risky business. And if you ever noticed in a lot of the episodes, he'd do a little jump before he'd teleport, just so that he wasn't touching the ground when he showed up in the next place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he'd do a little hop.
Yeah, I remember that from the
and land.
game, actually, the Sega game.
Yeah. So his lore has changed through time, but I do remember there was one where I don't remember what happened to him, but it slowed down his teleporting, and he actually seen the reality he was going into each time. But it was in the cartoons, and he had to deal with traversing that reality to get back to ours.
That's cool.
I think it's where that demon shows up too. Like there's a demon that exists on the other side of a portal that's always trying to break our reality. And it's gigantic in comparison to us. And there's one. It even has what's that evil? Like not Venom, but the other one, Carnage. Carnage opens a portal to it, and that's where Nightcrawler's coming in and out of. And there's a episode where he reaches through the portal and tries to kill Carnage because Carnage turns on him, and Carnage turns into like a big spike ball and makes him drop it. And the portal's going to close, and he's got to pull his arm back out or lose it, kind of thing. I was a kid when I watched these. It's been a long time.
Well, still.
But yeah.
It's cool.
It is.
I like Nightcrawler too.
Nightcrawler's overpowered. He doesn't use his ability to its potential, not even close. Not even close. He's got a kid too that can open portals and have a whole group walk through it. But she can do it in 2 different places. So like the portal exists in both spaces at once. That's where Nightcrawler is kind of, they call it BAMF or whatever, and he just pops into another spot. But she can open a portal and have a whole group walk through it. Magneto kills her for whatever reason.
Like a Stargate.
Like a Stargate, but she can create them anywhere.
Sweet. Okay, thanks.